I'm really glad to see some celebrities starting to speak out about Project 2025, and I'm also glad to see some mainstream news channels finally starting to talk about it and bring it to the front, because I think it's very important for people to understand that this is not some sort of left-wing boogeyman that we just cooked up to try to scare you. This is a real thing. It's something the Heritage Foundation intends to implement on day one of the next conservative president, be it Donald Trump or whoever. And I think people really needs to take a deep dive, even though it is long and painful to read, boring at times. I think people needs to really understand what's at stake. And it's hard to talk about this with some people because they're out there, they're working hard. And then when you say you're not paying attention, that can sound kind of condescending because, like, hey, I'm working my ass off here trying to get by. My grocery bill's really high. And I just saw this debate, and Donald Trump looked like he was on top of his game, and Joe Biden looked like he was kind of asleep at the wheel. So I don't know, man. Things weren't so bad under Trump, maybe. No, they could be even worse in a second Trump administration or a conservative administration in the next run. And I'm glad to see some mainstream news channels finally starting to pick up on this because people need to realize this isn't something we just cooked up in our basement. This is real. Take a look.
Project 2025 is their plan. It is serious. It's in writing. It's public. It is a chilling approach to running our federal government that got all the more chilling after the Supreme Court granted Donald Trump absolute immunity. It's the plan that Trump would implement on day one should he prevail in the November election and end up back in the Oval Office. That was actress Taraji P. Henson delivering that warning during Sunday's BET Awards to make sure that her audience and all Americans wake up about what is truly at stake this November, a full-scale reimagining of our entire system of government and who runs it in Donald Trump's image and vision. The mission statement for Project 2025 is a plan assembled by the Heritage Foundation. Sounds like something you'd read on the ex-president's Truth Social feed, and there's no evidence to rebut that that's exactly where it came from. Quote, "It is not enough for conservatives to win elections. If we are going to rescue the country from the grip of the radical left, we need both a governing agenda and the right people in place, ready to carry this agenda out on day one of the next conservative administration." Axios has new reporting on what they describe as Trump's imperial presidency in waiting, writing this, quote, "Trump promises an unabashedly imperial presidency, one that would turn the Justice Department against critics, deport millions of people in the U.S. illegally, slap 10% tariffs on thousands of products, fire perhaps tens of thousands of government staff deemed insufficiently loyal. He'd stretch the powers of the presidency in ways not seen in our lifetime. He says this consistently and clearly, so it is not conjecture." A few other headlines from Project 2025's 900-page-plus mandate, putting Christianity at the center of American life and government, criminalizing the mailing of abortion medication, the most common form of abortion care, criminalizing sending that through the mail, taking the word abortion out of all laws, policies, and regulations, as well as terms relating to gender and sexual identity, removing protections for the environment, denying climate change, eliminating the Department of Education.
So let's really stop and think about this one for a minute. Project 2025 is their plan, and the Supreme Court has just ruled that presidents have immunity for official acts. So if Donald Trump is reelected and he decides that he wants to do a federal abortion ban, he can call it an official act, and who's going to be there to stop him? If he comes after gay marriage next, who's going to be there to stop him? If he comes after interracial marriage, who's going to be there to stop him? If he comes after contraceptives, who's going to stop it? That's their plan. That's in their agenda. Oh, and no-fault divorces. Yeah, if you was divorced and it was a no-fault divorce, yeah, they're going to be doing away with those. That's their plan. And who would be there to stop him if Trump said, this is an official act? He has immunity. We would be in an authoritarian dictatorship, and that's not fear and hyperbole. He could shut down media outlets that he disagrees with, put anyone in jail who disagrees with him. We could literally be sitting here in a country that looks like the countries we fought against in the past. The very countries our grandfather fought against could be what we're living in going forward. And I think that's why so many people need to understand this. And people say, oh, you're just getting people worked up. Well, here is the leader of Project 2025 saying out loud that there won't be a bloodbath as long as the left just goes right along with it.
That we are in the process of the Second American Revolution, which will remain bloodless if the left allows it to be.
So see, this is a problem for Trump because comments like that will wake some people up. It will start to make people look around and go, hold on a minute, wait a minute. Maybe this is serious. Maybe there's more to this than we thought. Because that guy just said there won't be a bloodbath if they just all go along with it. Those of us on the left have been outraged about this for a long time and speaking out about it, but maybe comments like that will start to make people in the middle go, wait a minute, hold on. Maybe it'll start to make people on the right go, wait a minute, hold on. And maybe even Trump supporters will start to come around to go, hey, you know what? This could affect our lives too if we let this guy just completely run wild with all of this. And what everyone needs to understand is that if Trump is reelected, he won't need MAGA anymore. He will have no use for them. And I think that's something they really need to stop and think about. But what's so funny about this is now that comments like that are getting made, which is bringing people's attention to it, and now that celebrities are drawing attention to it and mainstream media is starting to draw some attention to it, now Trump, as always, is starting to backpedal away from this and get a load of this ridiculous post he made on Truth Social. I know nothing about Project 2025. I have no idea who is behind it. I disagree with some of the things they're saying, and some of the things are absolutely ridiculous and abysmal. Anything they do, I wish them well, but I have nothing to do with them. Okay, so let's break this one down line for line, shall we? I know nothing about Project 2025. Okay, let's stop and think about that. He knows nothing about it, doesn't know what it is, right? Then he says, I have no idea who's behind it. So let's think about that for a minute. He doesn't know who's pulling the strings. He doesn't know who came up with it, right, according to what he just said. And then he says, I disagree with some of the things they're saying, and some of the things are absolutely ridiculous. Well, wait a minute. I thought you didn't know who they were. I thought you didn't know anything about them. If you knew nothing about them, then how do you know that they're saying some ridiculous things? And why would you end it by saying, well, anything they do, I wish them luck? Why would you wish them luck if you don't know who they are and you don't know what their intentions are? I'm not going to wish a group of people out there that I don't know who is and I don't know what their intentions are. I'm not going to just wish them luck. Does people not stop and realize just how ridiculous this dude's statements truly are? The holes that's in that is right there in front of your face. You don't have to be a rocket scientist. I'm not Albert Einstein to be able to see through that. He's clearly now trying to distance himself from it because people starting to speak out about it, and it's not just people on the left anymore. It's people coming out and going, oh, wait a minute. There is something to be looking at here. We could be in for a complete and total disaster if this guy, or any conservative for that matter, was to get in there. So now he's running scared. But I think the one thing that we need to really keep in the front of our minds is this really, at the end of the day, it's not all about Trump. It's about the MAGA movement. And you got to go back to something that Steve Bannon said that should absolutely terrify anybody. Steve Bannon says that in the MAGA movement, Donald Trump is a moderate. Take a look at this.
What does the MAGA movement look like after Donald Trump? 10 years from now?
I think the MAGA movement, I think you see it right now. And one thing, on the spectrum of MAGA, I believe that President Trump, who's a very kind-hearted guy and a big-hearted guy, I would say President Trump is a moderate in our movement. And I think the MAGA movement is shifting day by day farther right. And that
Trump is a moderate.
Yeah, definitely President Trump's a moderate. I don't think he's any.
I've had several people say to me, man, I wouldn't worry about this if I was you. I really wouldn't be afraid. I don't think Trump would actually ever do any of these things. I mean, he likes to talk tough on the campaign trail, but if he gets back in, he won't do nothing. I mean, he didn't lock up Hillary. You got to remember that. I've had people try to say things like that to me, and what I would say to them is this. This is bigger than Donald Trump. This MAGA movement is actually bigger than him. He just happened to come along and see it. He threw gas on the flame, and he ignited it, and he grifted, and he cashed in on it. But this is a movement that's been brewing for a long time. These extremists have been out there, and they've been brewing for a long time. Donald Trump just happened to become the mouthpiece for it. But it's something that's been there for a long time. Steve Bannon has been one of the major talking heads about this for a long time, and these people are not going to go away. So either way it goes this November, let's say Joe Biden wins, and we say, okay, we did it. We saved our democracy. Well, for now, but we're still kicking that can down the road because we're going to have to contend with it later. And let's say that the people that tells me not to worry is right. Let's say Donald Trump gets reelected and he doesn't actually follow through with any of it. We're still kicking the can down the road, and we're going to have to face up to it later. Because these extremists are not going to go away. They didn't come this far, folks, to just turn around one day and go, yeah, it's okay. I guess you guys got the best of us. I guess we'll just leave well enough alone now. We'll just go on home. That's not how it works. You see, Steve Bannon is sitting in jail right now. He's got 4 months to sit there. So things will be a little bit quieter in MAGA's world. But when he comes back out, he can sit there and play the role of, I was a political prisoner. Everything I told you came true. And the movement will go on with or without Donald Trump. The extremists will always be there. That's why it was so devastating to the Republican Party and so devastating to American democracy that Donald Trump gave those people a voice. Any reasonable Republican would have never cashed in on that. Any reasonable Republican would have never went down that road. But he saw a way to get there. He saw a way to win with it. So you can tell me all day long I don't have to be worried about Donald Trump, right or wrong, whether you're right or wrong. It's something we still have to contend with. This extremism is going to be around. They're not just going to take their ball and go home, folks. That's not how extremists work. And when they say things like, hey, it won't be a bloodbath if you cooperate, then how can you sit and tell me that those people are for democracy? How can you sit and tell me they're for democracy if they would be willing to say that to us? When they're out there saying these things, Steve Bannon has sat and promised retribution and revenge. That's what they're all about. That's what those extremists are all about, with or without Donald Trump. So I'm glad to see some celebrities starting to speak out. And I know what you're going to say. They should shut up and sing. They should shut up and act. No, everybody should wake up and pay attention. To anyone out there that wants to tell a celebrity or a musician to shut up and sing, I'm going to say wake up and pay attention, okay? Because American democracy truly is threatened more than it's ever been, and that's not us trying to get you worked up. It's not something we cooked up. It's not something we invented. It's something they invented, and they've been talking about for a long time, and they've been dreaming about for a long time. They got lucky and found a charismatic cult of personality in Donald Trump that could win some people over. But long after he's out of the discussion, those extremists are still going to be there. So we have to keep our eye on the ball. We have to stay focused. We have to vote on the side of democracy come November, and that's Joe Biden.